Heyo, what's up? Humor across the media, summer 21. Let me hear you. Don't. I hope you didn't say anything there. Yes, me, Dr. Vaughn, here to regale you with humor and media things for a few weeks. I just wanted to put something together to as a welcome, as sort of an intro to kind of give you some guidance on how this is all going to work. Talk about some philosophies of humor that I hold near and dear to my heart, and hopefully convey them to you in a concise and uh, interesting manner. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to try to do that quickly. As you can see, I mentioned eye surgery in my email. It's for real. You might not see me without sunglasses ever. So I apologize for that. Maybe if I start, maybe I'll let you into the inside world of Ryan Vaughn as, as we go. But for now, you don't need to see what's happening over here. If tears start to run out, that's just natural. I'm not. I'm not crying. Um, yeah. So don't be alarmed by that. Um, Humor across the media. Okay. So this course is basically a survey of all my other courses put together. In other words, I teach a class specifically about television. I teach a class specifically about film. I teach a class specifically about stand up and things like that. All the major forms, genres of the comedy industry. But this one I'd like to do as a survey that kind of looks at all of it together. So if you looked at the syllabus, you'll see gonna do a couple movies, gonna do some TV, some sketch, some internet stuff, and some stand up, and and we're out. Um, Again, it's very easy. You just have to watch this stuff and think about it and comment on it, and then I'll post videos for each thing that we talk about. I'll have a response that you should also watch because what is this? If you don't get input from me, this is nothing more than like a book club, basically, where it's like, hey, read this book. Oh, did you like it? Yeah, okay, bye. And that's, you're not getting your money's worth if that's the case. Um, so, yeah, there's going to be a variety of things. I'll start by saying this. It doesn't matter if you think it's funny or not. It doesn't even matter if you like it. You might hate it. You might not like it. You might not think it's funny, but we have to get over those kinds of things in these kinds of discussions because what we're inevitably trying to do with this course and with humor in general at this level of education is explore humor for its larger benefits, for its meaning, for its ideas, for its I acknowledge it as a vehicle for change. And that doesn't start with whether you like it or not. I think one of the problems in this country, especially, is if we don't like something, we immediately dismiss it. We don't listen to it. And that kind of is a mentality that got us where we are now. It's like nobody listens to anybody unless they're saying exactly what they want to hear. Right? So you're going to watch things that you disagree with, that you don't necessarily um, jive with. But I think it's important to listen, hear what they're trying to say because with most comedy, it's not just a joke. There's something larger at play. There's an idea, there's a concept, there's an injustice that is trying to be either exposed or reframed or explained or something in an interesting and digestible way. Um, so that's what you need to have working in your head as you're watching. So, like, the first thing we're going to watch is, you might not like the performer. You might not like how he or she sounds. Do you know what I'm saying? You might not like their point of view or their opinion. Get over it. Get over yourself, right? This is different. Those discussions of was it funny? Did you like it? Reserve those for the bar with your friends or at a sleepover with your friends or at the dinner table with your family, whatever it is. Like, you can have those discussions all you want. I love those discussions, right? But those are discussions purely of taste. And this course is not about taste. This course is about humor and its place in our culture, basically. So, to help you do that, I usually make this distinction very early on in my courses that should help you kind of categorize humor and think about it differently. For me, there's two. This is four, but two types of humor. There's humor and there's good humor. I know, really fancy, uh, yeah, fancy language, right? There's humor and there's good humor. Humor is anything that's trying to be funny, literally anything. And generally, what separates humor from good humor is the existence of an idea or a point or some meaning that is larger than the joke. That the joke is trying to expose or, you enlighten. And once you start thinking of comedy in these two forms, it starts to get easier. It gets easier to interpret and talk about intelligently in this type of format of a college course. So comedy or humor is pretty much anything that's trying to be funny, right? Good humor or good comedy is the comedy that starts with an idea, not a punchline. It's the comedy that sees an injustice or wrongdoing or is trying to understand an idea differently, um, and is using humor to highlight that inconsistency or injustice or whatever. Um, and there are many creeds that I will spout over the course of the next 5 weeks. One is this. One is this. Humor exists where shit's most fucked up. That has become increasingly true over the last 25 years or so. It used to be, yeah, humor was humor, and it was sort of pushed to the side as a site for learning and understanding the world. It was this distraction. It was, frivolous and sophomoric and entertaining only. So we pushed it aside as being valuable in any way other than, for a fleeting laugh or, you know, haha, moment of entertainment, let's say. But last 25 years or so, maybe a little more, it has taken on, a whole new role in that most, again, good humor, not just humor in general, there's always going to be humor. There's always going to be jokes. There's always going to be farts. is always going to be guys getting hit in the crotch, right? That is humor, period, right? That's not good or bad. It's funny. Like, funny's not what we're talking about here, really. Ironically, I guess. But humor exists where shit's most fucked up. And for case in point, news. Let's take the news, right? There's been this huge boom in comedy news, right? It started with The Daily Show, and then we had The Colbert Report, and then you had Last Week Tonight, and Full Frontal with Samantha Bee, and Patriot Act with Hassan Minhaj, and I mean, The Onion, and all these sort of things. Well, that didn't just come out of nowhere. You know where it came from? The fact that our news system is incredibly fucked up. And comedians in general, I think good comedians, purveyors of good comedy, see it as their duty when they see something that's fucked up to try to unfuck it with comedy. And that's kind of what we're doing here. So everything we're going to watch, yes, it wants to make you laugh, but it wants to make you think as much as, if not more than, make you laugh. Which brings me to another credo. First credo, humor exists where shit's most fucked up. Second credo, I just forgot what it was that I was going to say. Oh, good humor starts with an idea. Okay? Humor in general, a lot of times is like, oh, this would be funny, right? And then they make a joke around it. They start with the punchline. They start with the funny concept, and then they work it out that way. Good comedy starts with an idea. Like, what's the idea for today? Race. Okay, how can I talk about race or racism or whatever you want to call it in an interesting way that's entertaining, digestible, approachable, and funny in a world where that topic is typically not those things. And it's the best people at doing it are, are basically, they're geniuses, right? So if you've ever, I'm assuming you've all seen South Park somewhere along the way. There's an episode, they did an episode once called 6 Days to Air. It's a little documentary about the making of an episode. And what stuck with me and blew me away the most was the way that they construct an episode. They sit in the writer's room, and it's Trey and Matt, and it's the rest of the guys and the women, the writers. They're sitting there, and they don't start with, oh, what stupid thing can we make Cartman say? Or what ridiculous thing can we have Randy do? It doesn't start with the frivolous or the joke. It starts with an idea, right? And they're as topical a show as has ever existed. And they use humor to expose different ideas, to put different ideas into public discourse for discussion and debate. And that's a sign of good comedy when it comes from an idea, the idea first. So when you're watching all this stuff over the course of the next few weeks, that's what you have to be thinking. Not, I mean, it'll be funny. I don't think this stuff is not funny. But you want to be talking about in your comments, like, why did he or she make this joke? What's the idea at the center of this joke? How does he or she look at it differently and maybe give me a little different perspective about the concept or idea that I hadn't thought about? Brings me to credo number 3. And this course is a perfect way to start to put this into practice. You should seek entertainment and enlightenment from everything that you do. It's something that comedy has embraced over the last 25, 30 years and has as I think it works. Think about your life. If more of us sought to be both entertained and enlightened by everything we do, every engagement with another person, we try to find what's funny and enlightening about it. And those things usually happen at the same time, simultaneously. Um, Hanging out with your friends, being with your family, at work, um, whatever it is, in school. Um, Seek, just as long as you're searching for it, right? As long as you're searching, seeking enlightenment and entertainment at the same time, you're going to be a happy person, and you're going to have a healthy, I think, well-rounded perspective on life, um, and the world around you. If you can, if you can continue this pursuit, right, of being both enlightened and entertained, and that's what all the comedy that we're gonna watch. It's not all comedy either. Like I think once you start to hone in on the good comedy versus comedy distinction, you'll start to see it very clearly. So like somebody who takes a lot of shit from me is a guy like Kevin Hart. Okay, Kevin Hart is hilarious, no doubt about it. He makes me laugh a ton. But eventually I get to a point where I'm like, okay, now what are you about? Like, I understand that you're funny. Now what? Right? I'm looking for this deeper meaning and it's just not there. Like, he's a comedian who, and more power to him, figured out that he's funny and he's more in it for the money than anything else, I would argue. All the movies he does, all his stand up specials are virtually the same. Right? He realized, well, I can continue to do this and make a ton of money. So who gives a shit if I'm about anything bigger? Like, my bank account certainly doesn't, but that's not enough for me as a fan of the genre. Like, you gotta give me more than that. He's just not interesting to me anymore. Right? Gabriel Iglesias is another one, right? He figured out, oh, he's fat and Mexican. He says fluffy a couple times and everybody laughs and throws money at him. Like, well, that's comedy for sure. He's funny. I get it. But at some point, for me, and I think it should be for you and all of us, that shouldn't be enough, right? And don't get me wrong, there's always a place for it, right? A lot of people like to be like, so you don't like when I'm like, no. I like all jokes. I love to laugh. Laughing, making someone there's no more intimate exchange in human existence than making someone laugh. And trust me, I appreciate it more than anybody. I've clearly built my life around it. So this shit matters to me. Um, but why not do more with that? I'll go back to South Park. South Park could just be a cartoon that's sort of, you know, over the top and crass and has these just insane characters and be hilarious and make it a shitload of money. But they make it about something. Why? Because they can. And here's another credo. And what credo am I up to? 4. In the media, you have an opportunity, but not necessarily a responsibility to make a difference, to change people's minds, to make people think, right? In other words, a lot of people love to say, oh, well, because you're on your TV show or you're a stand up comedian or you're a performer, you have a responsibility to, be a certain way or say certain things. That's not true. That responsibility lies with us as an audience and a viewer. But they certainly have the opportunity to make a difference, to provoke thought, to encourage um, discourse and interaction. So why not take the opportunity? So all these comedians and TV shows and things like that have taken the opportunity, right? They don't have to, but they choose to. Like that's fundamental to this course. I'll never show you something that doesn't have, you know, in many cases, layers of meaning and perspective on the world that we live in today. So, um, I have so many more creeds, but this is kind of a ramble just to get you guys centered with an idea of where you're headed. I don't want to just throw you into like, all right, watch this and comment on it, because you know what would happen if you don't watch this. You'll see the comments will be like, I like this, it was funny. Like, don't care. I mean, yeah, it's nice, but number one, it's impossible for me to pick content that A, everyone likes, and B, everyone thinks is funny. Um, and a lot of times, the stuff everyone likes and thinks is funny isn't really the most interesting. There are times when that happens, and that's awesome. Thumbs up. But I want to give you guys at least a little bit of direction going into the course. And I say this all the time too. I'm like, a lot of my job, I feel like I spend defending what I do, defending humor as, it belongs here in academia. And one of our problems is we don't take it seriously enough, right? We think the opposite of funny is serious. It's not. The opposite of funny is not funny. And I guess that's a mini creed. Uh, so I'm constantly fighting for it because I think a lot of people, even you've probably told your friends, "Oh, I'm taking this class, humor across the media," and they're like, "Oh, what's that? Like, stupid shit." And you're like, and you might not be on board, but by the end of this, you'll be changed in terms of the way you see the world, and that's my ultimate goal. Is just I want you to see the world differently. Being more open, being more critical, like that's that's a comedian's job, whether you know it or not. Like a comedian's job is to be, and this is a function of good comedy too, right? It because we're going to talk about a lot of hot button issues that are going on in the world today. But we're going to be able to do that in a civil manner because of the context of comedy, right? Comedy, when you're watching something funny, you let your guard down, you relax, you open your mind, you think a little bit more, you you're more open to different ideas because you want to understand the joke, so you're listening. It's conducive to you know quality discourse. It's conducive to um, looking inward at yourself and your own ideas and beliefs and values and things like that. And it rarely ends, in pain. Like it's nobody gets hurt. We're talking about stuff in this context. Um, so I often argue, as going back to my other point, I consistently feel like I have to defend what I do, right? That I teach this stuff, and everybody who doesn't get it or just looks at it from the outside is like, "Oh, yeah, what do you teach? Like farts?" And like, Okay, just whatever. Um, but I would argue it's more difficult to teach humor than it is to teach math, right? Like if we're talking about complexity and cognitive agility and things like that, humor is far more complex and difficult to understand than math is. Math you can teach to anybody, right? It might be basic math like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, those kinds of things, but that can be taught to literally anybody. Meanwhile, you can't teach humor to anybody in terms of like how to be funny. Like if you think about it, even the funniest person in the world only has a sense of humor, right? Like you can figure out math. There's an A, B, and C. It's a formula. It's empirical. There are answers. Humor combines all of these different things and mixes them up, and you're sort of you have to be have the cognitive agility, to use a term again, to be able to navigate it and put it together. If you want to get the joke, you have to understand language and context and cultural references and tone and audience and the performer's background. Like all of these kinds of things go into a single joke. And it's way more complex. You can't teach people to be funny. You just can't. But that even the funniest people in the world only have a sense of humor. We all only have a sense of it. Nobody has it figured out. Um, so that's I like to float that out at you too. Um, and I'm sure I'll think of other things. Be sure to watch my my videos. Um, like I said, I'll post videos. So this first thing you're gonna watch, and then like Wednesday morning, I'll post my reaction. So my thoughts combined with your comments. So I'll take some of the better comments that you guys leave, and I'll talk about those and sort of like make it into a little lecture. And then the new content will go up. Does that make sense? So like boom, boom, boom. Um, yeah, that way you can get some input from me. So hopefully, um, like I said, this should be fun, um, and thought provoking on some level. If it's not, I failed you. So, um, thanks for watching, listening, um, and for registering for the class. Um, can hit me up, email me any questions or thoughts that you have along the way, and I'll be happy to answer those. Get back to you. And all right, settle in for the summer. Okay, bye.